This time on the Eurostep.
Villanova, Eagles, and now the Sixers.
Kyrie's injured. Is the earth still flat?
Spurs fans are upset. But Kawhi. Hi, I'm Oisin Brown and this is the Eurostep on CRC. This week I'm joined by Killian Optis
Yeah.
and Alex Evans.
I do have a line this week.
That's not good enough.
That's
Like,
dead, man. Dead banter.
Gave you like 3 days to do it and you still don't have one. That's not acceptable.
Never talked about it before.
This is why you do
Just
me.
when
You just
you
say the same
just,
thing
just,
every time.
just when you said, I'm Oisin Brown, I was like, well, you know what? We've just forgotten, haven't we?
We literally just had a half-hour discussion about Elon Musk and you couldn't think of a line Elon Musk related to throw in there.
You screwed
Anthony.
up, Alex. But you know who else is screwed? Transition.
Who?
Kyrie Irving.
No,
Hey.
he's unscrewed.
Oh.
The Celtics are screwed. Whoa.
Guys,
He's
what
getting
just,
screwed
what just
out.
happened? Anyway, so Kyrie Irving is looks like he's going to miss not only the rest of the regular season but the playoffs too.
He's out.
Gone.
Done for a year. Holy
Um,
mother of Woj bombs.
yeah. So he's getting 2 screws out of his
Wow.
knees, or out of his left knee today. And that means not only himself but Gordon Hayward is also out, meaning the Boston Celtics probably won't win the championship this season.
They weren't good anyways.
No, they weren't. Let's be real. But anyway,
argue.
Killian, what do you make of all this?
First off, just like to say, if there's one player we've talked to death, it's Ben Simmons. But if there's another, it's Kyrie Irving. Like you mentioned, he's getting surgery to remove 2 screws in his patella, which is his kneecap.
Whoa.
And he will be out for 4 to 5 months, naturally missing the rest of the regular season and playoffs.
He gonna be back for training camp though.
Oh boy, I can't wait. He'll be able to get good chemistry with Anthony Davis. Anyway, it goes out saying, like, Boston will miss him. He's the best player on the team. You don't have to say anything. Just a quick stat. He has an RPM, or real plus minus, of 2.5. For comparison, prime Kobe Bryant had an RPM of 0.5. But with Kyrie Irving, obviously you will miss him. But one of the things is when you're missing a star player, what am I trying to say? Often when missing a star player, you know, the backup, which is Terry Rozier for the Celtics, will have to step up. But a lot of times that isn't the problem. We've seen Terry Rozier has been absolutely amazing this year. He's taken great strides in his game, and he's become a bit of a mentor for Kyrie Irving. The real problem when a star gets injured is the backup's backup, which is Shane Larkin in the case for the Celtics.
Or Kadeem Allen.
No.
Nah, just
Shane
nah.
Larkin. I think we can agree he's not a great player. Like, he's not good.
But,
But
like,
he's not a backup point guard.
He's your third string point guard. Like,
He's third string for a reason.
He's your 4th string point guard when Marcus Smart gets back.
He's more of a shooting guard though. He plays shooting guard.
But the way the point guard situation is looking in Boston, you're gonna need someone to slide somewhere. And funny enough, I was watching some of the Boston-Milwaukee game the last day, and a lot of the times when they were out there, they had no point guard, and it was just Jason Tatum bringing up the ball, or even Al Horford bringing up the ball from a rebound. So the way today's NBA is, you don't need a point guard as such. One guy can bring up the ball, and now everyone, especially on a team like the Celtics, everyone can handle the ball, everyone can move and pass it. Even when they have their front court of Jason Tatum, Marcus Morris, and Al Horford, they're all big enough guys, but they can all dribble, put the ball on the floor, and make a move. But also I saw in that game is with all their injuries, and I believe Kadeem Allen was starting in that game,
He was first.
and there was
NBA
no
series.
Terry Rozier, nobody in that game for the Boston Celtics. They still put it up to the Bucks. They lost in the end, but they were there and they were fighting for a lot of the game. So one thing, I wouldn't be too surprised to see them in the playoffs put a fight up against some of the teams, especially with the coaching of the great Brad Stevens. But the teams they'll potentially be facing in the first round is the Wizards, which they have a lot of history against, and they'll be out to beat them. And if Marcus Smart is back in time, you imagine he'll be getting pretty much the majority of minutes against John Wall. And we've seen how good Marcus Smart is against superstar players, especially on defense, to try and limit John Wall. Then you have the Bucks as well. They also have little experience like these Celtics, and they've shown they can put up a fight against them. And then there's the Miami Heat, who they can be streaky, and when they're not shooting well, they can struggle. So it's not going to be a cakewalk for any team that still comes up against these Boston Celtics.
Yeah, you mentioned the playoffs. It will be tough without Kyrie. In the playoffs, all the time, you need your star player to just get you a bucket in clutch time, in crunch time, when the game's tight. You can't rely on a motion offense or a post-up. You need to get your star player ISO and get you a bucket.
But Jason Tatum has shown
shown
flashes like that this year.
As great as Jason Tatum
is.
As
long as Jaylen Brown has as well. He's obviously had that game winner earlier on in the year against Utah.
Looking like Mike.
Like Mike.
But like I was saying, as great as Jason Tatum is, times are tough when your best scorer and arguably best player is a rookie, especially one that's not even going to win Rookie of the Year. That's a bit crazy. But if the Celtics are going to really do anything in the playoffs or get to the second round, maybe depending on seeding, their defense will have to step up back to what it was at the start of the year. At the start of the year, when they were on the 16-game win streak, they were a monster of a defensive team. In terms of defensive rating, one of the best of all time. They didn't have a rim protector, but they didn't need it because they suffocated everyone on offense, contested every shot, jump shot or layup. It was absolutely amazing. They've slowed down a lot recently with the injury to Marcus Smart, who's really the defensive anchor of the team. But if the Celtics are to succeed in the playoffs, they need Marcus Smart back healthy and ready to clamp up whatever superstars on the other end of the court.
And Daniel Theis as well, I think, is an underrated
very
player.
Underrated. He's the best defensive rating on the Celtics team, which consists of some very good defensive players.
Yeah, coming off the bench, not the greatest shot blocker out there, but his height and his physicality is enough to send some shots away or even get in the passing lane down low
some shots
when that second unit comes in. And ever since he's gone down, their bench has struggled as well. So,
would it be fair to say that judging or what is a successful playoffs for Boston isn't how far they get, but how the young players in this team grow? I mean, almost the entire team, you could say, is very inexperienced when it comes to playoffs. They're just young players, and bringing through the likes of not even just your Tatum and Brown, but players like Theis, Rozier Larkin, even Gershon Yabusele if he's playing. I think this is a great chance for the Boston players to go in playoff. They don't have much pressure. I think that'll allow them to grow more than if they had Irving and possibly even Hayward in the team.
Even someone like a Marcus Smart, who may or may not be part of Boston's future, but has he ever been in the playoffs?
Yeah. What are you talking about?
With Detroit.
Detroit?
Yeah.
Marcus Smart.
Marcus Morris.
Oh. I don't think so.
Yeah. Oh, he hit that when he hit me there, He's little to know. But he's going to be a key part as well. His physicality.
Really stepped up with his scoring.
A
very good player. He said it himself, the Celtics fans used to like me. Now I think they're starting to love me. Mm-hmm. And it's 100% true. I think this playoffs, though, like you said, there's not much pressure. Expectations have kind of died now. Your two best players are injured. I'd just say give the ball to Tatum and Brown. Just let them get experience, let them find themselves, and just develop as players.
A successful playoffs for the Boston Celtics is steal a game or two, but even if they get swept, just have Tatum, Brown, and some of the other guys show flashes. As long as they don't go 0 for 12, have 2 points, then it's pretty much a success for the Boston Celtics this year. Because they're only going to come back better next year.
I just don't see how Boston could get swept. I know they're missing their two best players. They're not good. I don't think even if they were at this strength playing against the better teams in the Eastern Conference, I wouldn't see them getting swept. I just think that these young players will bring it. even though I suppose they lack experience and I suppose their skill set isn't fully developed yet, they still have that drive and that energy that more experienced players mightn't have. They're not as worn down.
But they still, it's a known fact across the league that when playoffs come, teams take it up another notch. They crank it to a whole nother level, and simply, Tatum anyways hasn't seen that kind of pressure. Brown maybe has a slight bit, but he didn't have the role he has this year in previous year.
Last year.
But yeah, the pressure, the defense, especially if they're playing the Wizards, and we've seen how scrappy some of the Wizards-Celtics games have gotten over the last couple of years, and it's hard to know if young guys will be ready for that kind of playoff experience.
Yeah, so next, Philadelphia 76ers. They are they're playing the best basketball this franchise has played in a long, long time. They're on a 12-win streak, which is a stark contrast to a few seasons back when they went 10-72 for the season. This is the longest streak they've had since 1982, I believe.
I think the third longest streak in their franchise history.
And this is with the early, I suppose, the early side of the process that we're still supposed to see these players grow a lot. This is a rookie Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in his first full season, I suppose, as well with other players around that team. Covington's Arch, young players. Everything looks brilliant in Philadelphia. Alex, I'll start with you. What do you make of all this?
It's a lot of media hype around this 12-game win streak. Don't get me wrong, the Sixers are playing good basketball. They're a fun team to watch, and they will be deadly in the playoffs. But this 12-game win streak, 12 games, no matter who you play, is good. To have 12 games where you play pretty much perfect basketball is good. But they've beaten 2 teams over 500. One of them being the Denver Nuggets, which is that's a good win because they're fighting for playoffs. They're tied for 8th seed now.
Who knows with the US?
Continue. They're hunting for that playoff spot, and they want to win that game, obviously. And then you have the Minnesota Timberwolves without Jimmy Butler, so they're kind of not the same team they were, but again they're still fighting. So that's 2 good wins. All the other teams below 500 and out the playoffs with nothing to play for, resting players, tanking, trying to lose the game. So there is a sense of empty numbers there, but even for the likes of Simmons and Embiid to get this streak, Embiid is injured, but for Simmons anyways and Markelle Fultz to have him back, for them to get this kind of experience and confidence heading into the playoffs is going to be big.
They've been absolutely amazing over the 12 games. Like you said, regardless of who you play, 12 games is amazing, and the stats show that they've been playing brilliant offensively and defensively. Over the 12 games, they lead the league in points per game, opponents' points per game, rebounding and assists. And though they are playing kind of worse teams...
It's not hard to play offense when the other team can't score, or defense when the other team can't score.
But earlier in the season, with the Celtics streak, they were scraping wins left, right and centre. As most of the wins during that 16 games were less than 10 points, probably less than 5. These games, they're absolutely blowing out teams. They're winning by an average of 14 points per game. And the competition's a bit iffy. But as well, they've been extremely efficient, shooting 48.4% from the field and 38.1% from 3 over the stretch of the 12 games. As well as that, over the 12 games, 2 of their best players, Joel Embiid and Dario Saric, have missed over a third of the streak, and they didn't seem to care, really. It's an all-star centre and one of the best kind of role-playing starters in the NBA right there, and they don't seem to care. I was looking at all the stats, all the players over the 12 games, and I was trying to figure out who kind of stepped up their game the most, but it wasn't really anyone. It was a team effort. Everyone stepped up a little bit, and it came out a lot. But some players, we've talked him to death. Ben Simmons, he's averaging a triple-double for the 12 games with 13.6 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. Some notable games he had. He had 11 points, 15 assists, and 12 rebounds against Charlotte a good while ago. When you have more assists and rebounds than points, you better be an absolute beast or you don't know where you're going. Again against Charlotte, he had 20 points, 15 assists, 8 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. Absolutely stuffing the stat sheet which I think has kind of been the motto for Ben Simmons' rookie year.
And an important thing to mention about this Philadelphia win streak is that they're in the 4 seed, and at the time of recording, they are half a game behind Cleveland. Now, tonight for us, they play Cleveland, which the game will be happened by the time this comes out. But that could either make or break. They could make the 3 seed with this win with only a couple of games to go, and then maybe have a potentially easier route to what many people think, hyping them up, they could make the conference finals.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for the first round, it doesn't really matter whether you're playing, or whether you're the 3rd seed or the 4th seed. But going to the second round, it's much more favourable to be the 3rd seed, because then you play.
You avoid the 1 seed.
You avoid the Toronto Raptors.
Boston team.
You play a crippled Boston team or whoever beats them.
Sure.
You know. And even though it's, an injured Boston team, it's still going to exert, they're going to have to exert a lot of energy to beat that Boston team. So you could be going against, broken Boston or their jaded opponents. I mean, it's very favourable to get that 3 seed now.
And of course, they're going to go after it. Even as a Celtics fan, you'd much rather play Boston than Toronto with how they've been playing this year.
But the King knows that as well.
Yeah, the King wants to get that 3 seed as well. Everyone's trying to play Boston.
He sees that.
Not necessarily. I mean, I suppose we all just believe in this studio anyway that it doesn't matter who you put up against LeBron, he's just going to pull through, because this is LeBron in the playoffs.
That's all we've seen when we've been watching the NBA.
And we're starting to see recently this playoff LeBron kind of come out of a shell a little bit more with that big win against the Wizards to put them half a game clear of Sixers. And now tonight against the Sixers, I'm expecting big things from Mr. James.
I think this could be an absolutely brilliant contest, and it is one I will actually watch the whole game of, which I don't do that often.
Cleveland by 15 plus.
Nah.
Ooh, I think it'll be a close one.
No, Cleveland don't blow teams out. Cleveland don't blow teams out.
Who's at home?
8 points.
Not a clue.
Cleveland.
I think it might be Philly.
I believe it's Cleveland.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Philadelphia.
Philly at home.
Hey!
Ooh, that's tough.
In the Wells Fargo Arena, them Philadelphia fans are going to get wild. They always do. Rooting on these Sixers on their streak with already 2 champions in their city. They're hunting for that 3rd one, as Charles Barkley said.
Yeah, I suppose this isn't a Philadelphia that wins in every competition each and every year. Like, I suppose we saw how crazy they went when the Eagles won. We saw they went pretty wild with Villanova, even though this is Villanova's 2nd title in 3rd year, in 3 years. To see the Sixers win, they'd go mental. Again.
Hell, like, I'd go mental if the Sixers won. Like,
that'd be the start of a long process. That's
10 straight titles.
That's a whole nother
10 straight titles. Trust the process.
But not really.
Not really, no. But I suppose we have to admire just how well the Sixers have been playing recently. I suppose mid-season they were, I suppose, the lower side of the playoffs. They're maybe hovering around 7th. I suppose back then New York were still hunting until Porzingis got injured.
And they
but
gave up.
in the second half of this regular season, they've been a different animal. I suppose once Philly came back from London, I think that was kind of the turning point in their season, because they didn't play well in that game.
I watched that game. They started well. They were first half. They were leading Boston, and then Boston just
terrified. I was like, bloody hell.
Yeah, that I suppose it was brilliant for the London fans who don't get to see much basketball. For the first while when the Sixers were putting up the Celtics, we're kind of enjoying this game, and then the Sixers just slid.
Just as a quick side note, I'd just like to say, would you think that the Celtics have the most comeback wins in the NBA this year?
They do.
It seems every game they're down 20, come back, win the game.
There was a wild stat there a few weeks back. I'd say maybe All-Star break. But the rest of the league were, I believe, 183 went down by over 10, and Boston were 536 or something like that when being down by 10 points in the game. So more often
Like
than
win
not,
percentage.
yeah, more often than not, they win down by 10 than they lost.
That's
They're fighters.
yeah. That's just it's amazing. But obviously, I suppose now going back to Boston again, it's a bit harder when you don't have that leader that Kyrie Irving is on the court. But
Especially when he's clutch as he is.
man, seriously clutch. But back to Philadelphia. Do you think they could cause an upset and get to the NBA Finals?
No.
Bit of a stretch. For such a young team, they don't have the experience. And you keep saying, like, young players, they have the energy, which is 100% true, but experience matters a lot in the playoffs, and they just don't have that with Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, all the young guys in their team.
Again, we're saying about teams like Boston who are going into this playoffs inexperienced. This Sixer team is going in pretty much completely unexperienced. They have JJ Redick, who's been there in the Western Conference.
Ursan Ilyasova.
Amir Johnson. They're bench scrubs, pretty much, are the only ones with experience on their team, aside from JJ Redick. But again, completely inexperienced. They're not going to be aware. I think that first game in the playoffs is going to be big for them. If they just hits them and they buckle under the pressure, then we could see them even getting bounced in the first round, which probably unlikely, but with the Sixers, you wouldn't put anything out of possibility at this stage with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Eastern Conference, there aren't. I mean, Toronto, I suppose, are somewhat experienced,
Toronto
and then
have been there, yeah.
Cleveland have LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
that's enough.
Yeah, but the rest of the conference doesn't have that sort of experience, and I suppose it'll be different in the Western Conference.
Any Dwayne Wade,
but. Oh, no, but like the teams as a whole, like obviously each team may have a couple of individuals who've been there, but the teams as a whole don't really have that. So I suppose there's no reason why Philadelphia should be, I suppose, afraid going into this.
No. They have nothing to lose if they get bounced first round. So we got like 28 wins last year. They're probably going to break 50 this year. They're 48 with 4 games left. They get bounced first round, so what? They make a second round. Plus, conference finals even better.
The only thing is, if they can make it to the conference finals, they're trying to put on a show for Mr. LeBron James with his impending free agency. You think if they get bounced first round, he's like, maybe not.
Yeah, but then again, he might like a challenge. But like, okay, so anyway, Kawhi Leonard. We started this podcast talking about Kawhi Leonard, and he just, the story doesn't go away despite him still not playing, which is, odd, but I suppose when you have a player of his caliber, you just can't stop talking about him. Well, he's still injured anyway. There's no sign of him coming back anytime soon. Alex said in the last episode he thinks that, he's played his last game for San Antonio, which is...
Yeah, he has.
It makes sense if they were to trade Kawhi this season, because next season he's a free agent. So, what do you think is going to happen, Killian?
I think he's getting traded. It's such a weird situation. One kind of theory that's come out is that he's not actually injured and he's trying to force his way out of San Antonio, which sounds crazy, but this season has been crazy as a whole. It said that he wants out of San Antonio because it's not a big enough market. And in order for him to get a massive Jordan shoe deal, he has to play in a bigger market, so he's a more marketable player for the brand to advertise. It makes sense. San Antonio isn't the biggest market. It's not too well known.
Top 5 smallest markets, I believe.
Probably are. If he were to move to a bigger market, say Los Angeles, New York, even just big basketball markets like, say, Boston, it would have a massive effect on him as a player. He'd be a lot more marketable. He'd be a lot more well-known around the world among people who might not follow basketball. If people don't follow basketball, they're not going to know who Kawhi Leonard is, but they still know LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, because they're that much more marketable, because they're in bigger markets and kind of like that. Maybe the theory is that he's trying to become more marketable and he wants to get out of San Antonio because of that. It's a bit realistic, but are we grasping at straws here? Is that a bit crazy?
Well, like, I suppose from our own perspective, we wouldn't really see Kawhi as that type of character because he's so, I suppose he just seems so quiet anyway. He isn't really much of a social media presence. it doesn't. He doesn't do much for himself to market himself that much. I suppose obviously the most self-marketing we'd see would be Lonzo Ball and the Ball family, and we'd see.
It's close with LeBron James.
They're the kings of marketing.
You ever see LeBron James' Instagram though?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard seems like a very quiet guy, and it's not easy to market that. So I suppose if you only market the basketball side of him, it's a lot easier to do that when you're in somewhere big like Los Angeles, New York, etc.
Yeah, don't talk about marketing when he doesn't have an Instagram and he has one tweet ever thanking HEB when the Spurs did their adverts with them.
Oh my.
Or no, it was some charity. Thanking some charity. So don't talk about no marketing. It seems like his group, which is including his uncle, the people around him, they feel like they can market him better elsewhere. It feels like almost Kawhi is being brainwashed into this fact that he needs to get out of San Antonio. Because what most people pretty much believe, he was the second best player in the league until he went down to LeBron James. He's been back and forth between San Antonio and New York for that right quad injury he has. But there seems to be that divide there, which is rare with the Spurs, as we said before. Tony Parker came out and said, I had the same injury, but 1,000 times worse than that. And as a teammate, that's not the kind of thing you come out and say when you're supposed to be supporting your teammate. Because Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili and guys like that, they're so loyal to Pop. They're not going to go out and say things like that without consulting him first. So it is a very weird situation. But reports then came out recently saying that teams are inquiring about him, circling like vultures for Kawhi in the upcoming draft.
I mean, who wouldn't? It doesn't hurt to ask.
So on that topic, where do you think is the most likely destination for Kawhi Leonard to go next season?
Most likely, I'm not too sure, but just it's more kind of who can give the best package. The Spurs are going to take the best deal. If they look to trade Kawhi Leonard, they're not going to be too bothered about where he wants to go, I'd say. One team, I'm going to be called biased, the Celtics. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's realistic, but it's just they can form the best package out of every NBA team if they want to. They've a lot of assets. They can form a package around Tatum or Brown, along with Horford to balance contracts, and then we have some good picks. We have the Lakers 2018 or the Kings 2019 pick, depending on protections. We have a Memphis 2019 pick next year and a Clippers 2019 pick next year. It's a lot of assets. We could give up a package. I don't think it's going to happen. It's just worth mentioning that they have the best assets and can make the best package.
It's really hard to know when you're trading a player of Kawhi's caliber because you need so many assets. There's a few teams in mind, one of them I think being New York. I mean, you're not going to get much of a bigger market than New York, so that'll keep his uncle and all them happy. But because it's a trade situation, San Antonio can throw him wherever they like. It doesn't have to be a good team.
Or a
but
big market.
Obviously, adding Kawhi helps with Kawhi and Porzingis. That's already going to be a good team. But they do have a few guys that they could kind of throw in there. Guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., Frank the French rookie, Emmanuel Mudiay. Throw them down to Texas along with a high pick this year and picks coming up in the future, which will be a good foundation, I think, for the aging Spurs and players, coachable players. I think that Pop could really manage well.
Yeah, one player from the New York Knicks I'd like to mention is Trey Burke. I know
he
we
out
have
of contract this year.
Out of contract, yeah. I suppose maybe
The solution.
He'll get some money in free agency, though.
Averaging 12 points and 4 assists? No, he won't.
Yeah, I mean, but like
Trey
Burke has been playing, better basketball recently. He's actually been playing pretty well. If he were to sign again, he could see himself being traded instantly because his trade value is obviously at the highest it's ever been.
There is a lot of teams like that as well, such as the Lakers, who they've been kind of rumored out there. They have a lot of assets, but I don't know if they have a lot of assets that they'd like to throw at San Antonio.
I'm going to give a Brandon Ingram.
Because obviously they're going to want to keep Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Kyle Kuzma. Their main shippable asset they kind of have is obviously their draft picks. They have a nice few draft picks. Obviously a lotto pick this year, and Julius Randle, but he's obviously heading into free agency as well. The only guys really that are worth anything that they could move are guys like Josh Hart, Zubac, and Alex Caruso. You see, it's hard to say, but they do have a lot of picks. But even the idea of having a Kawhi Leonard-led Lakers with PG-13, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Kuzmania is very, very exciting, to say the least.
Realistically, I think that if the Lakers were to trade for Kawhi Leonard, they would have to part with Brandon Ingram. I think he is the player that would be the main part of that deal. I suppose we could see another. I'd say it'd probably be Ingram, Hart, and a first round pick. You might have to throw in maybe another role player or another pick. And I suppose it's not easy to part with Brandon Ingram. He was the second pick of the 2016 draft, but this is Kawhi Leonard. And
if Brandon Ingram ever gets that good, then it's very unlikely that he'd ever get to Kawhi Leonard's level.
But you still don't want to part with those kind of players, but I still feel that Los Angeles would to get a player of that caliber, providing he looks fit enough. Obviously, we'll have to check him out. Maybe it is just a case that he isn't sitting out; he is genuinely injured, and it's we've seen obviously this season Isaiah Thomas. It's not easy to bounce back from a serious injury.
I think one thing with the whole trade thing though is when you're trading a top 5, top 3 guy, depends who you're asking, like Kawhi Leonard, you're never going to get back the same level of value. You're never going to get back the value of a top 5 player and the effect he has on that team. So they will have to take a bit of an L there, I suppose. That's the best way I can put it.
In the immediate future, no trade for a superstar like that will be good. But even as we saw this year, as we mentioned it before, we saw, quote unquote, the Chicago Bulls get robbed by the Minnesota Timberwolves. For initial reaction, that it was such a poor trade. But now looking back on it, the Chicago Bulls have solid pieces for their future, and going forward, if they can add a few more players, they look set.
A destination, though, I saw floating around on Instagram, the Cleveland Cavaliers. This trade would be centered around this year's Nets pick, which is projected around 7, though it could move up to top 3 in the lottery. I don't really see it happening. I don't think a 7th pick is really great for Kawhi Leonard. It's not a great trade. They don't really have too much else to give up. They could give up Rodney Hood, Larry Nance Jr., but
the first Cedi Osman.
Cedi Osman, he's a good player. But I don't see that happening, especially if LeBron James leads in free agency. Not a chance, even though they will get traded before.
We won't know by then.
Yeah.
But that would be the perfect incentive. The perfect incentive for LeBron to stay. If he gets paired up with Kawhi Leonard, the one man who haunted him for so long. And then we have the top 4 players in the league on 2 teams pretty much set for the finals.
Even on the Spurs side of that trade, though, it might give them a chance to draft Luka Doncic, depending on what mock draft you're looking at. A lot of them have him down at 6'7", which is absolutely outrageous, but it's not for me to make that decision.
With so much talent, at 6 or 7, there's going to be someone who can make a difference on your team in the future in a while. But guys they could all throw back at San Antonio as well could also make a difference, like Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood. We've seen them make impacts as good role players on their teams. But in San Antonio, it's completely different. You're a good role player. Popovich will mold you into something completely different.
If you're not a good player,
pinnacle
he'll mold
of efficiency.
You into a role player. There's not a one bad player in San Antonio.
I suppose along the lines of Cleveland, there's another team who want to keep their big player, and that is Milwaukee and Giannis Antetokounmpo. They have pieces that they could trade to get Kawhi Leonard, and they wouldn't, according, this is Bleacher Report came up with 6 possible destinations for Kawhi Leonard, and in this one, they wouldn't even have to part with Jabari Parker. the
Gonna be free agent anyways.
yeah, but you know,
Sign and trade.
you know.
But
Anyway,
At the draft.
so Milwaukee
next
would
year.
Milwaukee get Leonard and the big contract of Patty Mills, and in return, San Antonio receive Malcolm Brogdon, Thon Maker, Chris Middleton, Tony Snell, and the 2019 first round pick.
I just fell in love. Thon Maker in San Antonio.
And Malcolm Brogdon, rookie of the year.
Oh boy.
I mean,
He's
like,
gonna be a backup.
it's it's role players and players who could be maybe growing into good players, and it's not a bad trade. I mean, San Antonio could do a lot worse than that package, I think.
It's hard to know what the guys over at Milwaukee are thinking if they want to immediately match up Kawhi Leonard and Giannis Antetokounmpo to be one of the most feared duos in the NBA, or do they want to let their young guys play out, because Giannis is still young as well. He's only going to get better, so incentivize all them guys coming up together and growing together. We've seen this year they've already taken strides to get better and get into that playoff race. If they have a good run the playoffs this year, it's hard to see them wanting to effectively blow it up with a trade like that, getting a lot of their main assets and pieces.
The Kawhi Giannis duo would be absolutely terrifying. Easily the best duo in the East, without question. Another trade proposal I saw for the Bucks though was Chris Middleton, Malcolm Brogdon, and Sterling Brown. Not a clue who Sterling Brown is. I'm not going to lie. But it's more of a kind of, I say maybe more realistic trade proposal, because teams aren't going to give up an incredible amount for Kawhi Leonard. He's a brilliant player, but it's an expiring contract and basically just missed an entire NBA season. So it might be a little bit more realistic, but you're still getting good value. Chris Middleton's a great player. He's a good 3-and-D, and we've seen he can pass the ball a little bit this year. And like you mentioned, Malcolm Brogdon, he was last year's Rookie of the Year. Debatably, he should have won. Whether or not he should have won it, but he won it either way. He'd be a good fit for San Antonio.
We have one last team I'd like to mention are the Phoenix Suns.
Nope.
Nope.
Just it could happen.
So in this, Phoenix get Leonard and Patty Mills again, and in return, San Antonio receive Dragon Bender, Jared Dudley, Josh Jackson, and this year's first round pick. It's not a bad package. I mean,
I can tell you one thing, that Kawhi Leonard's group wouldn't be much happier with Phoenix than they are San Antonio. That's all I know.
I don't think they'd be too happy in Milwaukee either, to be honest.
No.
Obviously we've seen Nike. I think if Giannis were in a bigger market, he'd have his own signature shoe by now.
I mean, he should.
I mean, he's only 23, 22.
Yeah, but he's a superstar.
Yeah, I mean,
Wiggins has a signature shoe.
Kyrie Irving.
Wiggins has a signature shoe.
Yeah.
With who?
Adidas.
That's ugly. It looks like a hiking boot.
But to be
it's
fair,
a rip-off with a crazy explosive.
most of Adidas's shoes up until the last, I suppose, year or two were kind of trash. Anyway, they look very plasticky. But now that they've, the
shots fired, then D Rose fans.
the sewn Ultra Boost, the knitted ones, they look kind of nice.
Do you want to hear something crazier though?
What?
LiAngelo Ball's signature shoe.
That's the Ball family are a different
I
case.
just want to say this really quick. Something I was thinking about. One of the biggest names in the 2017 draft isn't going to get drafted. Just think about that for a second.
Fact.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
One final team we forgot to mention, San Antonio.
Is this all just crap?
As we've seen time and time again, Greg Popovich is a magician. That's the only way you can put it. And the Spurs are the pinnacle of what an NBA franchise strives to become. And a lot of this kind of trade hype is fueled by the media. They're just thirsty for this kind of drama, and they think when a player of Kawhi's caliber is on the market as such, they go wild with this sort of thing. But you take a trip back to last year when LaMarcus Aldridge wanted out of San Antonio. He had a meeting with Greg Popovich, and look at LaMarcus Aldridge this year, having the best year of his career since leaving Portland, and really leading the San Antonio team to the playoffs, a 45-plus win season, which isn't all that bad considering their one all-star player they have is out. So it's hard to know. Either way, it's
If there's one man that
you wouldn't
can
be
do
too
it,
surprised to see him back in the silver and black next year and for the rest of his career.
there's one man who can do it. It's Greg Popovich. He can do anything.
Or will the San Antonio Spurs lose more than just their 50-win streak this year?
And on that
Okay.
note, we'll have
Right.
to leave it there. Thanks to CRC for the studio. If you enjoy our content, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are Team Eurostep at Team Eurostep.
Oui.
On obviously you're checking us out on YouTube. Thank you.
Hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, exactly. Hit that
Smash that like button.
Make sure to hit that bell for post notifications every Wednesday and Saturday.
Like, subscribe, do your thing. And of course, if you enjoy our content, please support us on Patreon. We are Team Eurostep there as well. And as you know, as little as €1 helps. We'll have to leave it there until Wednesday. So until then, that's a goodbye from Killian.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Jesus. A goodbye from Alex and a goodbye from
Shout out
me.
Elon Musk.
My man.
Bye-bye.
Until next time, keep grinding.
Kids.
Keep grinding.
Kids.
Keep grinding.